This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, so chapter 13 on page 157 is entitled Break Free from Unhealthy Thinking. You remember that chapter where we had, what was it? The games, be free from marital games. This is very similar to that one, except it's not games, but it's unhealthy thinking that we sometimes fall into. And again, just like that last chapter about breaking free from playing games, this chapter it doesn't necessarily mean that because you play or you have unhealthy thinking and minor unhealthy thinking in some of these areas that's bad. It just means that a lot of this are ways in which sometimes we think that are not healthy. And if we do a lot of it, then definitely not healthy. Okay, so if you take a look at page 160, there is an exercise of 18 statements, and in the left-hand column you will mark if this statement is true for you, you mark an X there. On the right-hand side, if it's true for your partner, you mark an X there, okay? Now, when you sit down and talk about these statements with your partner at your marriage staff meeting, remember the rules, that this is your partner's opinion. If, for example, I say, I think that if I were Scott and I thought that Sheila saw things pretty much as black and white, uh, that's my opinion about what I think about Sheila. That doesn't make it bad. It's just my opinion. Okay. Now Sheila may feel differently about that. Um, so again, you want to mark in your specifically in the right hand column for true about my spouse or true about my partner. You want to make notes and say, this is why I thought this. Because when it gets to your marriage staff meeting and you say, I think that you see pretty much things as black and white, Sheila, um, Sheila may disagree. Um, but again, don't get into a big argument about it. Realize that that is your partner's opinion, and then share why you think that, and your partner is going to share why you shouldn't think that. Okay, and so you're going to go through those 18 statements and mark true for you, true for your partner, and then you're going to come up with an evaluation. Excuse me. Or a compilation on page 161. And if you mark down 1, 7, and 13 were, if you mark 2 of them, I would say chances are you are a polarizer. If you mark 3 of them, definitely you're a polarizer. If you marked only 1 of them, I say maybe you're a polarizer. Okay. So you're going to get this. You're going to end up with some results, and you're going to find out if you're a polarizer, a magnifier, a personalizer, a generalizer, an emotional reasoner, or a minimizer. Now, typically, because of the way physiologically we male and females are made, our brains, generally speaking, most females are magnifiers. You may not be, and so you would disagree with me. And so if you're not, fine. But I'm saying, generally speaking, most are. The opposite is true, for example, of men. Men are minimizers. Don't make they'll say things like, "Don't make such a big deal out of that." Okay. because to them it's not a big deal, but to the female it is. That's, again, physiologically, that's the way our brains are made. That doesn't make it wrong. It doesn't make it right. It's just the way we're made. Okay. Um, so let's take a look at page 163, and we'll talk about each one of these 6 destructive, unhealthy thinking. The first one is on page 163 is the destructiveness of personalizing. Basically, when you personalize, it means that life events are personal rejections and attacks. You all know that. Don't take it personal, somebody will say to you. Okay? The thing I like about this is, if in the exercise, if you come up with the fact that it looks like you're perhaps, wow, I'm a personalizer, then on page 165, it's got steps on how to overcome personalizing. So it's really identify, okay, now that I've identified, and now do I need to work on overcoming that? And that's what each one of these has as a follow-up to the destructiveness of describing it. And then on page 167, it's the destructiveness of magnifying or making mountains out of molehills. And on page 169, steps to overcoming magnifying. I think personally, I like this chapter. I think it's fun. Okay. And on page 170, you got the destructiveness of overgeneralizing, which is history always repeats itself. You know what? I see this quite often in couples that come in to for counseling, because let's say, for example, a husband has always done this, they're never going to get better. It's always going to be that way. I mean, he's always been a womanizer. He'll never change. Or kind of comments that I might hear. Okay, that's history repeating itself and never getting better. And then on page 171, steps on how to overcome generalizing. Then on page 173, you've got the destructiveness of emotional reasoning. Emotional reasoning is where you interpret your feelings as facts. Because you feel it, it's true. Okay? And as I talk about each one of these, I think you can see there is some value in realizing that some of these things are very unhealthy. Okay? Page 175. It's got the destructiveness of polarizing, which is seeing everything as black and white. It's either this way or that. I mean, there's no in between. Again, this is a very common thing with men. We men are quite often polarized. Everything black and white. There's no middle around here. Okay. And then on page 177, there's an offshoot of polarizing called selective abstraction. And what that is missing the forest for the trees. Okay. You focus on one thing and you don't see anything else. And then on page 179, you've got the destructiveness of minimizing. As I said before, don't make such a big deal out of it. Don't make such a mountain out of a molehill. It really doesn't matter why you're getting so upset about that. Okay, that's minimizing. So, a little bit of a longer chapter, but I think you'll find it fun. Does it look like fun? Jessica says yes. Greg says yes. Nina says yes. Mike doesn't quite sure yet. Sheila's good. Scott's good. Okay, everybody's good. All right. Any thoughts? Any questions? Who wants to bring up a good discussion topic tonight? How about, I'll bring one up, and then you guys can think of one too, maybe. How about, is there a right way to load a dishwasher?
I like the toilet roll going over, you know.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
I'm not an under, I'm an over.
Uh-huh.
God doesn't like the toothpaste squeezed from the middle. Hates that.
Yeah. But we're spot on the toilet paper.
Yes, we're good on the toilet paper.
And
Yeah.
I could unload the
I learned.
dishwasher and the daughter unloads it.
That's right, we got that worked out.
I'm like you, Scott. I learned a long time ago there's a right way to put the toilet paper on the roll.
There really is. There really is.
I had to be trained, though, because I grew up in a household that did it under.
Oh, no. It's an over. It's over.
Ooh. So, were you going to say something, Jessica? It looked like you were going to say something.
No.
What about just putting the new roll of toilet paper on top of the old toilet paper instead of actually throwing it away and taking the time to do that? That's what I do.
He just waits for me to handle it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, at the church, we have these toilet paper dispensers, okay? And many, many years ago, I kept getting all kinds of complaints from the ladies that the toilet paper was not installed in the toilet paper dispenser right. Like you say, Sheila, come off the top, okay?
There you
So
go.
we started doing that, okay? And then we had a volunteer who always restocked the toilet paper rolls to a dispenser. Now this person, if a toilet paper roll had like maybe let's say a third of the toilet paper still on it, he would take that one off and replace it with a new one and stick the half used one on top of the dispenser. So then we had ladies complaining about us putting those toilet paper rolls on top of the toilet paper dispenser. You learn a lot when you work at a church. And it's like when you're in retail, for example, the customer's always right. Okay? In a church, the congregation's always right. Whatever they want, that's what you do. One week you're putting the toilet paper in upside down. The next week you're putting it in right side up, just to appease somebody. But doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. So I guess I'll let you go since you're not very talkative again tonight.
Well,
No, actually, excuse me. You did great in the very
Yeah, we
beginning.
talked more tonight, I think, than any other night.
Yeah. You guys really were talkative.
Yeah, we're just still done early.
Yeah. And Mike, I know Mike just sitting there, just waiting to explode. He just wants to say something, and he's just holding back. Mike should be sitting on the couch between John and Kristen so that he can talk to the two of them. All right, you guys, have a good rest of your evening, and we will see you next week, which
All right, good night.
will
Bye.
we have 2 weeks left.
Okay. Are we here?
Well, last week will be.
Have a good one.
Okay.
Good night.
Good night. Hi, Greg.
See you soon.
We're trying to